one thing I had to learn, like growing up being a law enforcement officer, is that you're going to be held to a high standard, and that really and truly you're never off duty. So whatever you do off duties can influence you when you're on duty. So got in trouble, like I say, speeding, losing equipment, just being young and naive. Females, like I say, as you know, come in uniform, they start to come your way. And during that time, like I say, before I became a law enforcement officer, I was really big into writing erotica. It's something I did, something I did back in the day. I was
Yeah.
pretty good at it, but it kind of followed me into law enforcement. And then my chief told me at the time, like, hey, I understand you like to do what you're doing, but at the end of the day, you're held to a high standard. You can't just be putting all that stuff out there like that because people look at you differently because you're a law enforcement officer. Me being 20, I'm like, here, I said, people follow me what I'm doing. They like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But as I go older, I understand that. And that's kind of like stuff like that kind of got me in trouble. Like I said, I got ruined for Facebook. I used to put on my Facebook page. Like I used to write some
Yeah.
short stories. And I think I had a good following, had a very good following. If I wrote a book, I wrote it was sold at least good 10,000 copies. I had been following over. But it was kind of intense stuff. And so every time I apply for a job, they'll see these stories I wrote back 11 years ago. And they'd be asking like, so what's this? I'm like, I used to be a writer back in the day. I said, he told me not to. I still kept doing it, but it's in my personnel file, so it follows me. But, I can explain it now that I'm a little bit older. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like what happened with my first job. Just being young. And like I said, I wasn't an aggressive officer, but me and my partner got the job done. And like I said, back then, I was still training hard in martial arts. So like, we just wasn't going to take any crap up. And that's what he told us. He said, make sure people are comfortable enough to have a beer with you, but know that he won't take any shit from you. And that's just how it works. Like, we're going to give you one opportunity. Do what you need to do. If not, we're going to have the problem. So that's just kind of how it was for me on my first law enforcement job.
Yeah. How old are you now?
32.
Okay. So I have this conversation with officers that have been around the block for a while. If you would have asked 18-year-old me, I knew I wanted to be a cop at 18. So if you would have asked 18-year-old me or even 21-year-old me, I would have told you, yeah, I'm ready for that job. Like, I'm ready to be a cop now. Let's go do this. But if you ask 25, even 35-year-old me, if I was ready to be a cop at 18 or 21, I would have told you I was out of my mind. There's no way I was ready to put a badge on at that age. And I almost think that 25 would be a reasonable starting age for police. But,
yeah, I think you have a little bit more life experience. You know how to deal with people a little bit better. But like I said, most time when you come out of high school or you're just 21, 21, you think you're the best boy. You think you can take on the world when no problems come with. So, and then I didn't know how to process people. Like I said, I came from a school called Glass High School. And like I said, we're known for fighting. Like I said, I'm not going to say I was one of the people all the time, but we were just known as people. Like I said, you challenge us, you want to show us. So in law enforcement, you can't be like everybody. You got to learn how to talk situations down. That if you had to take that next step, then you take it. But in most cases, they want you to take it. That's why my sheriff sent me and my partner to Purple Judo. At first, we weren't learning that process. Like I said, if you said something to us, you wanted to pull out air in your chest, you like to show. You're like, well, okay, everybody doesn't need that. Some people are just angry at those situations or the problem that they're going through. You got to learn how to talk them through that. Me, and I was like, okay, man, you need to do this, you need to leave. They're like, I'm not fucking going anywhere. Oh, you're about to leave out this house.
yeah.
Now you learn how to talk to people a little when you're a little bit older and all that stuff. But some people just have bad days. Some people have those days when they're like, everything's going wrong. They need somebody to talk to. And it's law enforcement officer. Sometimes we're going to be that person that you don't have to talk to. And so you can either ignite the situation or you can diffuse it.
Yeah. Yeah. That 0 to 5 year mark for us as cops, that your first 5 years is rough because I don't care how much of a people person you are, that does help, but you are constantly, all that stuff's running through your mind. Like, am I violating this person's rights? What laws have been broken? What am I allowed to do here? What am I not allowed to do here? What's the discretion? Like, if that's all going through your head while you're trying to have if you're a people person and you can talk to people like that, I'm sorry, that dampers my ability to be a people person. I can't. Yeah. You gotta process all that stuff until it does become muscle memory where you already know, like as I'm walking to the scene, I've already got some of my call details. I'm like, well, I know I can detain everybody here before I've even shown up. Like, I already know I can detain all these people. Okay. So what am I going to do? Well, I'll get my partner. Half of them will take those guys. I'll take this half. And we'll work the story out. We'll get together. We'll take, you know how the process of a call is going to go versus that 0 to 5 year mark. Depending on what department you're at and the volume of calls you get. I came from a major, metropolitan city. So, we were fielding 1 million calls a year, if not more. And you got all these calls coming in. You get a plethora of calls you get to handle. So you get to practice your skill a lot versus a small city that's got a couple thousand people. You don't make a lot of contacts on real criminal activity. So now the wheels got to constantly be turning because you don't get to practice as often. So yeah, it can make a difference on that 0 to 5 year mark in the volume of calls and your experience level and learning how to handle them, how to talk to people like you're talking about. So, all right. Well, you do the sheriff's thing, and sheriff's departments have a lot of options typically because you're covering a county, and you've got the jails, you've got helicopters, you got canines, you got all sorts of different options. So as you're looking into going to the sheriff's department, did you have an idea of like where you wanted your career path to go?
Well, like I said, when I was with the Waynesburg Police Department, like I said, my sheriff, who was my chief back there, we're really good players now. Like I said, he's my mentor in law enforcement. Basically what happened was, like I said, I got all the write-ups. In the first year and a half, I had about 12 write-ups.